Hey everyone, it's Desiree, and I am here with the November 2019 Pick and Main Crafty Courtyard subscription box. This one is absolutely gorgeous. So the theme is called Fantastic Florals, and they are. So this, of course, is your card. One of the sentiments is thinking of you and smiling. And then, of course, on the other side, you get to see all of the colors that are part of the kit. And then it explains all of the items that you're getting. So this is the cardstock, and you get 2 half sheets of a purple and green glitter paper. The black is a textured cardstock. So, of course, you get your twine. Both two-tone and solid. You get a packet of white and black gems. You also get a packet of shaker bits. You get some tags, some with some designs and others just with some chevrons at the base. You also get these silk flowers. Our button. I love my buttons. They sit on my wall. You get your 4 envelopes. You get some wood die cut pieces, a great stencil that'll create beautiful backgrounds, and then this is the paper pad. So it is very bright, it's vibrant, lots of black and whites, which make these colors pop even more. So these are each of the cardstock sheets. Now they are double-sided. But what's nice is if you see a black background, then you will see that pattern again, but see a white background. So that's something that's really great with this paper pad and how they've put that together. So you kind of get a lot going on in there, and it was tough to choose for the paper. And of course, here is the stamp set. Now what's great is those solid pieces fit awesomely into the open pieces. So that gives you choices if you're going to use your colored pencils, your alcohol, watercolors, or your inks. You have all of that available. So what I did, I took, for our first card, I took one of the cardstocks and I cut it into strips. Now, this was the cardstock that had the strips in there, whether it was white or black. I just cut out the white, and I'm going to lay them down onto a piece of 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch cardstock. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use 5 strips, but I want one to be flat down on the card. I want the other one to be raised with double-sided foam, and it's going to go every other one. So I will use my liquid adhesive and my double-sided foam, and then just get these set in place. There's not going to be too much space in between each of the strips, and that's okay, but you'll see that, especially when you turn the card onto the side. That's when you'll really see the difference in the height of the cardstock. So I'm just setting those strips there. And I'm okay if I'm not completely even, if one strip's a little wider than the other. Again, they're handmade cards. Yes. So I'll set the last strip down. So I have 3 flat down onto the cardstock, and then I have 2 of them that are raised. I'm going to use my scissors, and I'm going to trim around the cardstock just to make that even. I'm going to grab my stamp positioner, and I'm going to put a piece of white cardstock there, and I want to use the sentiment thinking of you. It's a really nice size sentiment, and I'm going to put that towards the bottom so that I can cut that out. I'm going to use my VersaFine black ink. It's a good one. That one's still my favorite. I know there's the obsidians that are out and all that, but I still like the VersaFine black. Once I get the stamp clean, I am going to use my clear embossing powder, and I'm going to heat set that. And then once that's heat set, I'm actually going to put this card back into my stamp positioning tool, and I'm going to come in with Versamark. I always get those two confused. Wow. Okay. Versamark, because I just want it to be a little thicker. I just want to have a little bit more of a solid coating when it comes to the embossing once it's melted. So again, I'm going to come in with my powder, and then I will heat set. Now, what's cool is I think the card shifted. Of course it did, right? But that's okay, because I kind of actually like the effect. There's like a gray area that's off to the side of the sentiment that looks really cool. I'm just going to use my trimmer to get that cut straight. I'm going to add my double-sided foam. I have an idea where the valleys are between the two that are raised. And then I'm going to use both of the twines, the solid and the two-tone, and I'm going to attempt to tie a bow, because I can't do it. I'm going to push that off to the side, and then I'm going to slide this over the sentiment just along the bottom. And it'll just fit nicely there. So I'll remove the release paper and get that set into place. Once that's set, I can easily push those threads up over the sentiment. So now we have that set. I just trimmed some of the tails from the bow, and if you just heard that, that would be my cat. Yes, he's precious. So we just, as I said, cat threw me off there. Sorry. Just trimmed the bow a little bit, have that going around, and then set that up on my standard A2 size card base. So now I'm going to work with the stencil. So I'm going to use my Post-it tape so that I can secure my cardstock to the back. And I pulled out one of my makeup brushes. I'm going to be using 3 colors: Broken China, Peacock Feathers, and Black Soot. So I'm going to start with the Broken China and just making sure that I have a good good blend, or enough color going down through the stencil. Sometimes I get a little off. We'll just go with that. I do have one of the pattern papers that I'm going to be putting down as well. So I'm just going to make sure that where I have these blends going, that they will come after the cardstock that I'm going to use. So for me, when I clean my makeup brushes, I use a baby wipe, a very damp baby wipe, and one of my dry cloths. And I've never had a problem. Now, the only time that I would have problems is if I don't clean them. Which I've done. Right after this one. Yes. So you can see I'm coming in with the Black Soot, but I want that to mix with the Peacock Feathers and the Broken China. So it's just going to put a different hue to those 2 colors. They're not going to be as bright. So I grabbed my double-sided foam tape, and this will help to prop this panel up over the stenciled background. So I do like the way that stencil was. It's almost as if you stamped the image, so that's something that I do like about the stencil. I could not wait to dig into the gems. I am a gem person. I really do like the look that they give. They are ones that I will grab first, more so than sequins. So I'm deciding what the pattern is going to be up in the white area where the stencil is. And I knew I wanted to use the darker shade. The black, it's got like a purple and blue hue to it. So, kind of figured out, so you'll see this line that goes through, and we're going to skip a section in between when it comes to these lines. But I do like the design. It kind of breaks up that whiteness that is up onto on that panel. That's the word I was looking for. So I'm going to grab the twine again. This time I'm just going to grab the two-tone, and I'm just going to tie a bow that's separate from the card, and I'm going to position that in the center of the floral panel once I can get the bow done. And then this will be a nice note card. You know, again, by not putting a sentiment, you know, that's what I consider to be a note card. Because again, every card we make does not have to have a sentiment. And this looks good either way. So I'm grabbing my stamp positioner, and I'm going to put my cardstock in there. Now the cardstock I'm using for this one is Nina Solar, and it's 80 pound. So I'm going to grab the leaf set, and I'm going to have that in each corner. I grabbed my Gina K Craft dye ink, and I'm going to, you can see that stamped. This is going to be a landscape card, so it's stamped in the bottom right. So now I'm going to stamp it again in the bottom right. So, you know, again, they'll be diagonal from each other. Once that is done, I'm going to pull in my next two colors, Fresh Asparagus and Jelly Bean Green. So I'm going to place the greens, the solid stamp, over these greens so that they can be stamped inside of those areas. Now again, the beauty of this, of the first stamp, is you can use any medium that you're looking to use to color your images. I grabbed a finger dauber, and that's where the Fresh Asparagus is coming in. I'm just adding the darker shade of green to the base of the leaves. I'm just going to reposition the solid stamp because I was off a little bit on the other, which is fine. You know, we don't stop doing what we're doing. But I just moved this one so that it would be more so inside those areas to cover that up. So now that I have that done, I'm going to grab the Thinking of You sentiment, and I'm going to add another sentiment to this. Now, it looks odd where I'm putting this because it's kind of up high. It's up in the upper right-hand corner. But there's a reason. There's always a method to my madness. So with the craft, I'm going to stamp Thinking of You and Sending My Love. Now I'm using a finger sponge dauber again, and this is the Charcoal Brown by Gina K. And now I'm putting that towards the bottom. So now I've got this variegated effect when it comes to the sentiment. I'm going to set my stamp positioner aside, and I wanted to use some of the silk flowers. Excuse me, silk flowers that came into the kit. I'm going to use my liquid adhesive just to set those in place, and then I will set one up at the top. And that kind of fills in that area that was so large, you know, lots of whiteness going on there, that it kind of balanced that out. I'm going to set this on my standard A2 size card base, again 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, except this one's going to be a side folding. I'm going to use one of my Nouveau drops. It's from their new series called the Dream Drops, and that one was Gold Luxe. I used that one for the centers. For the areas on the branches, I'm using the white gems just to give it a little bit more sparkle. So for our next card, I pulled out my Altenew Artist markers, and I used my Simon Says Intense Black ink to stamp my image. Figured I'd keep practicing with my alcohol markers. So I'm going to start with my greens, and that's 702, 718, and 554. So the way that I use my alcohol markers is I put a layer of my light coat down, then I come in with my darkest, then I go to my next darkest, and then I go back to my lightest if I'm only using a 3 blend. So I start out super light, then go to the darkest, and work my way back up to the light, if that makes sense. But you can see here that's what I'm doing. I'm putting the lightest shade down first, then I'm coming in with, in this case, the medium shade, then I'm going to the darkest shade, and then vice versa. So I kind of, it all depends. I will always start out with my lightest shade. That just gets the paper saturated, and the alcohol markers will blend. At least that's what's in my head. I don't know if that's true. Again, I'm still practicing. So now I'm using the next colors, and I'm working on the flower now, and I work on each section of my flower individually. I don't skip around and do multiple petals. I will do one petal at a time. The numbers for these are R302, 304, 318, and 335. So these are a coral tone that I'm using for this flower. So again, you can see I come in with my dark or my lightest color first. I come in with the darkest, then the next darkest, then the next darkest from that, and then I'm back to my lightest. And I just keep building off of that. Again, this is even though it doesn't look it, it's not a large area to do so much flicking like I was able to do with the leaves. So this is pretty much, let's get your color laid down and let's blend it. That's pretty much what I'm doing. Again, going in with the lightest, then coming in with the darkest, coming in with the next darkest, and so forth until I'm back at the lightest color that I have. As these petals are getting smaller, I'm not going so much or letting so much that lightest shade show as much as the outer petals are, because as we get closer to the center, we have more shadows going in there. I am not one to worry about my light source, by the way. It's just something that honestly confuses me. So, once we have that colored, I'm going to set that down onto cardstock so that I can get that framed, and I'm just going to use my scissors to cut around, and then I'm going to use the darker shade of that cardstock as well. I am going to use my double-sided foam tape to prop this panel up. And then all of this will get set onto my standard A2 size card base. I did add the sentiment, sending my love. Now what I did was I did cut that sentiment because the full sentiment says and sending my love. So I just cut the and off. I can always put it back together. I'm going to add some gems. I added one of the black gems to the center of the flower. And now around it I'm going to use the white gems just to cover up that berry area. And again, that just adds some shine. For this card, again, I really, the papers were very fun. They had like a deco feel to them because of whether it was dots or chevrons or lines. You know, no matter what it was, you always had that element. So this one I thought was really cool because you have all the flowers coming up from the bottom right-hand corner, and you have these large black dots that I absolutely fell in love with. So I put this on one of the cardstocks that came in the kit. I cut it down to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Wanted to stick with bright. Wanted to stick with something that's really going to make those other colors pop as well. So I did go with the bright blue. I'm now going to put a dot of glue in the center of the black dots, and I'm going to add one of the white gems to that. So that's just going to give it a whole heck of a lot of shimmer and shine, but I thought it would accent those dots a little bit more. And again, they're just in that one area, so just to have those gems coming down just gives the card a little bit of a dimension and texture. And again, it's another note card, or it can be, because you can stop right here. What I am going to do is grab the large sentiment that says thinking of you, and I'm going to stamp that right along the bottom of this card. So we're going to get that into the misty. Yes. Once that's set, I am going to use my Simon Says Intense Black to stamp that sentiment. And then that card is set. So instead of showing pictures, I figured I would show you these cards here. So regular time, you're getting to see the close-ups as always. So I do hope you enjoyed the products or the projects that we completed today. Hope I gave you just a little bit of inspiration if you do subscribe to the Pink and Main Crafty Courtyard subscription box. If you don't, of course, the links will be down below. If you're just curious, the links will be down there below for you as well. If you have any questions or comments, please leave those down below as well, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. I want to thank you so much for stopping by. If you haven't already, I'd love for you to subscribe. Make sure you ring the bell so you know the next video. I hope everyone's having a great day, but always remember what's most important. Always be creative.